All right, party people. So about 3 months ago, we built this guy, and this is my 300 blackout AR-15 build that we did. And we used a Gucci receiver set, we used Strike Industries parts, and I got some new optics for it. And in that video, we just kind of went over all the parts that I used. I also had, tools that I use, and I also created a lot of tutorials on how to install some of these parts that you see on here, and they're over at my blog. And that's also where the build list is in case you see anything in today's video that you want to pick up. So that's the first link in the description, or it's pinned in the comments as well. I was really hoping to make today's video a lot sooner, but I kept having problems with it. Mainly with the cycling, but I had a couple of other problems too. And I think I may have all of them almost 100% sorted out. And today I wanted to talk about, number one, how are all the parts that we put on here performing? And then I wanted to talk about how I troubleshoot and fix the problems that I was having with this guy. And the problem that I was having with the cycling was something that I never expected it to be. I typically am pretty good at diagnosing cycling problems and seeing where I need to look, but this time, this one really threw me off. Now, a couple of my favorite things about this build are gonna be the handguard and the brace that I have on here, as well as this muzzle device that we'll talk about here in a little bit. People at your sides, this muzzle brake here won't shoot blast out to the sides and hit those people. But this handguard really did come in handy because a lot of the diagnosing that I did in regards to the cycling that we'll cover in a minute had to do with me removing the handguard. So this is the Strike Industries gridlock rail. I do have links and stuff over at the build list, and it has this little switch that is right here, and you simply push down, pull that out, slides right off, and then we have their adjustable gas block as well. Then back here, we have the Strike Industries PDW brace. It's a little bit pricey, but you know what's really cool about it? That I love to death. And if you watch the first video in the series, you're gonna notice a couple of things that are different, and we're gonna talk about why we changed those out here in a second. Has proven to be really useful when you're trying to troubleshoot these and figure out if there's any issues with it. This build is in 300 blackout, and as a lot of you guys know, sometimes, especially if you're piecing parts together, 30 caliber guns can be finicky, whether it's 308 or 300 blackout. And this one has proven to be a little bit finicky in regards to the cycling. So when I first took this guy to the range, everything seemed to be running just fine. And as you could see, it shot just fine, and it locked open on the last round. And then I let my buddy, Mr. Big Kid, put a mag through it, and it ran just fine for him. He's got an awesome channel, by the way. I'll have a link to his channel down in the description below. But then as I kept putting rounds through it, eventually it stopped locking open on the last round. Just didn't lock open. That one didn't even cycle. Well, it didn't lock open, and I'm on the highest gas setting. Still not locking open. That's really strange. And then another problem I had was when I would shoot this rapidly, and I'm talking about just going boom, 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 boom as fast as I could, I would get hammer follow, which looks like simulated full auto, but it's not. It's just hammer follow. Oh, that went fast. Yeah, that's strange. Oh, why is it doing that? the biggest downside to hammer follow is you don't know when it's going to occur. Some people think it's kind of cool, but I think it's really dangerous because say you're trying to pop off a round, bam, and then it's like that. That's not fun for anybody and somebody could really get hurt. So I needed to isolate that variable as well. If you watched the first video on this, you would notice that the trigger is different. So originally I had the Velocity Triggers MPC trigger, which is a trigger that has a modular and adjustable trigger shoe. And I've had great luck with those triggers. However, I have noticed over the past few years of just taking different ARs apart, putting some together, doing some builds, that some of the drop-in units, and when I say drop-in units, I mean units that are completely encapsulated in a shell, and then all you do is drop them in and put the pins through. And it kind of depends on the type of parts that you put together. There's really no way to predict it. But I've noticed that in some cases, if you put parts together, sometimes you can get hammer follow with those types of triggers. It doesn't matter the brand. Like I've had the same issue with CMC, I've had it with others as well. And whenever that kind of thing starts happening, it's probably due to some tolerances that you can't control because that trigger is encapsulated. You know, the hammer and the sear and the trigger shoe and everything can't adapt to say like the spacing of these holes right here. And so typically the way that I solve those problems is to put a trigger in it that isn't a drop-in unit, rather it's a replacement trigger, but it comes in different pieces. And with that, I put the Geissele SD3G trigger in here. Check this guy out. One of my favorite triggers of all time. They're not the cheapest triggers, but anytime I've had issues with hammer follow, I just throw a Geissele in and it disappears. Or you could throw a mil-spec in and it'll disappear as well. And so that sorted out the hammer follow almost immediately. But then another problem kind of came up. Then I started having even worse cycling problems. I was getting where it wouldn't go through an entire mag. I was getting where it would do some double feeds. Or I would get failure to feeds, like it was trying to go into the ramp and it wouldn't quite go in. So then my buddy, Mr. Big Kid, used his phone to get some 1,000 frame per second footage of the bolt carrier group, and I could see that the bolt carrier group wasn't quite going far back enough to quite grab the other round and push it back in, nor was it going back far enough to lock open. And then I started my journey on identifying why this thing is undergassed. So typically when I do an AR-15 build, my goal is to make it overgassed and then get an adjustable gas block to lower the gas pressure. And the reason I say that is the only way you can really add gas to a gun that's already built, I mean, you could swap parts out and change gas systems, but the only real way that you can do that is to lighten the buffer spring, or lighten the bolt carrier group. But because this brace system right here has a proprietary buffer and a proprietary buffer spring, there wasn't really anything I could do with that. So I went to one of my other guns and I pulled out this Firearms skeletonized bolt carrier group. This thing is incredibly light. If you guys remember back in early 2019, I published a video on the Faxon FX 5500, I think it is. That's a carbon fiber AR-15 that weighs like 4 pounds. It's really light. And a lot of the weight that was taken out of it was taken out of the bolt carrier group. Now these are on the pricey side, and I do love Faxon bolt carrier groups, but there are more affordable options that are out there, and I'll be sure to include links to both this one as well as the more affordable options over at the build list. And I've been using the same 300 blackout ammo ever since I've started this test. I still got probably another 600 rounds of it that I can put through here. I got this guy, I put it into the gun, and so over the next month or so, as I went to the range to test other products, I would bring this guy along with me just to see if I could get it to run. It seemed like I kept getting closer and closer, and you know, I came home, I took the handguard off, I made sure that the alignment of this gas block wasn't moved one way or the other, and I wanted to make sure that it wasn't pulled away from the shoulder of the barrel. Nothing was working. And then one day, I decided to take the gas block completely off, and I found the problem. The problem was, despite the fact that I had the gas block completely pushed against the shoulder of the barrel, you can actually see in the photo that the gas port is partially covered by this adjustment ring. And so I pulled out the calipers and I measured the distance from the back of the hull to where the ring would be meeting the shoulder of the barrel, and I measured 6.11 millimeters. Then I put the calipers onto the barrel and did the same type of measurement from where the hole started to the shoulder of the barrel, and I got 5.49 millimeters. So that's about a 0.62 millimeter difference, a little over half a millimeter of a difference. I wanted to ask you guys, and maybe you guys can help me with this down in the comments, what is the typical distance on a barrel for the gas port to be away from the shoulder of the barrel? Because at this point, something is out of spec, and I don't know if it's the barrel or the adjustment ring for the gas block. So let me know if you guys know that down in the comments. I'd love to hear your guys' feedback. And so I sent Strike Industries an email saying, hey, what's up with this? And they are sending out another adjustment ring. And I don't have it yet, but we will be making a video in the future to see whether or not I had a one-off out of spec ring, or whether or not this is a problem with Strike Industries. And if it's not, we'll be able to see maybe my barrel was out of spec. You know, in the original video, I talked about how I like to build the gun around the barrel and the bolt carrier group. I always like to just make sure that there's some QC behind the barrel and bolt carrier group, meaning is it magnetic particle inspected? Is it high pressure tested? Things like that, just to ensure. Like, you don't gotta buy the highest end barrel, you know, especially on a short gun when you don't got to worry about sub MOA accuracy. But, you know, it's a ballistic advantage barrel, which are typically really good barrels, especially for the money. So it's possible that mine's out of spec, but I don't know. So you're probably wondering at this point, well, how the heck did you fix it if you don't have the new part yet? Let me show you. So in order to fix the tolerance issue that I had with this ring right here, you'll notice on the back side of it that it's no longer black. It's actually like you could just see like the bare metal. I took this whole gas block off and this ring pops out. Then went out to my garage. I set the ring down on the concrete because I didn't have a way to grind that flat on a machine. So I simply set it down on the concrete for about 45 minutes and I rubbed it on the concrete. After a 20 or 30 passes, I'd pull out the calipers and match it. I was trying to take it down from the 6.11 millimeters that it was at down to 5.49 millimeters. I was trying to get it closer to that, and then I would test fit it on the barrel to see if the holes aligned. Once the holes aligned, I called it a day, and I polished the back of this with some 2000 grit sandpaper. Now, something I have noticed about this is it doesn't like to move once you've been shooting it. And this is I've been iffy about this gas block to begin with, because number one, it's using a clamp style gas block, and usually you don't want that. You want something that has screws in the bottom so you can dimple the barrel and make sure that this guy will not move left or right. Now, I've had no issues with it moving left or right, but I was a little bit iffy because of that. But yeah, this whole carbon buildup situation and not being able to get this guy to move is messing with my head a little bit. But I found if you take a little Allen wrench, you could pop it in there, and sometimes you can break this guy loose. And I'm assuming the reason that it's not coming loose right now is because I really pushed this against the shoulder of the barrel right here really hard, and I got it on its wide open setting. But if I really needed to, I could probably get that to move. But it is kind of stuck in there. It's kind of fouled up with carbon at the moment. So that's pretty crazy, right? Got that thing all grinded down. Like I said, I just sat on the concrete outside my garage floor, and I put a pair of gloves on because it gets really hot when you're doing it. Sanded it down, then I polished it with some 2000 grit sandpaper. So then I went to the range and tested it, and strangely enough, the gun started functioning. So hopefully it's fixed now. I grinded the gas port down so that it would fit flush. I'm gonna do a 1 round check to see if the bolt will lock open. Let's see. And it indeed locked open. And we are locked open. So it looks like we probably figured out what the actual problem was. Now, I did notice as I was doing the test, I would have different results with different magazines. For example, these Amin 2 magazines were working really well. The ETS magazines were working really well. My Magpul PMag was working really well, but this guy wasn't. And this is one of my favorite mags. I just like the red, I think it's sexy. And this one is made by C Products Defense. strangely, now I'm running into a slight issue with failures to feed, and we're gonna be working on that and getting that kind of polished up. Maybe we gotta polish the feed ramps on the barrel, I don't know yet, but I literally just got it working, and I really wanted to make this video so you guys know exactly what's going on with this build, because I've been getting a ton of questions about it when I'm gonna post the next video, and this is why I haven't posted it yet. So now I wanted to talk about the red dot system that I put on here. I picked up this guy right here. This is called it's not set up like that right now, but I'll tell you why in a second. This and the magnifier are called the Romeo and Juliet, and it's from Sig Sauer, and I got this for like $230. I'll make sure to have a link to it. They also have these in FDE as well, if that's something you prefer, but it comes with the Romeo MSR, as well as their Juliet 3 flip out of the way micro magnifier. And I've never had a gun with a magnifier before, and I wanted to try it out. Now, you're probably wondering, well, why is your Holosun on here? Really simple answer. I have gotten really spoiled with big windowed red dots that I can't stand tube red dots anymore on rifles, unless they're pretty darn big. And I noticed that when I would come from low ready and pop up, that I was having a really difficult time acquiring my target. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, dude, you can just train around that. Yeah, but why train around it if I don't have to? And I can just put a big windowed Holosun 510C on there, which is one of my favorite rifle red dots right now, especially for the money. And this combination right here, you don't got to get this particular magnifier. This combination works really well. And so I think if you don't mind these little tube magnifiers, I think this combination is really nice. They also have other combinations with like different Sig Sauer red dots. You don't have to get the one with the MSR, but the price goes up significantly. So if I had to do the red dot system over again, I would probably just use the Holosun, and then I would just go buy like a Vortex 3X magnifier. I think those can be had for about 150 bucks. And I think that would work out just fine as well. But I love the way that it works right now. It's working really well. Aside from the trigger not working, I don't have any regrets with the original trigger from Velocity Triggers that I put in it. It just happened to not work with this build. That happens, not worried about it. This brace has functioned 100% flawlessly. I have no issues with that. The handguard has functioned 100% flawlessly, and this recoil device has functioned 100% flawlessly as well. The only issue that I had was something is out of spec either with the barrel or the gas block, and we will find out in a future video which one it is. So now that it's actually running right, what's this guy actually like to shoot? I will tell you this, it is a blast to shoot. I absolutely love it. It's shooting great. It shoots really flat. Something that really surprised me with this, it loses some of its ability to compensate and you get a little bit more muzzle rise. With this one, I put the footage into slow motion and I'm having a very difficult time discerning the difference in recoil impulse, whether this is installed or not installed. Now, one thing should be noted is this is quite heavy. One thing I don't like about it, when I'm in low ready, for example, if I have the oppressor installed, it's just kind of weighty to pull up and start shooting. Whereas without it, it's really light and I feel like it's a lot more better balanced. And this just kind of makes it a little bit front heavy. Is it a deal breaker? Not at all. And in fact, I think they're redesigning this and they may have come out with a new one. Not sure, but if they did, I'll get a new one. But it shoots incredibly flat and you can shoot it incredibly fast. That's one thing that I've always loved about 300 Blackout is the lack of recoil that these things have. I will say this has been one of the more eventful or more troubleshooting prone AR-15 builds than I've done in quite a long time. You know, in 2018, I built an Aero Precision 300 Blackout rifle, zero problems with that. Now this is a Gucci receiver set from Ascend Armory. They are no longer available, so I won't be able to have links to them or anything. Sometimes it doesn't matter if it's a Glock, it doesn't matter if it's an AR-15. And this isn't always the case, but sometimes the Gucci products that have the tighter tolerances tend to have more problems. However, when you get those tighter tolerances finally broken in, they tend to last longer. And so maybe that's what we're experiencing here. maybe it's not. Depending on how the next month or two goes, I might just buy another receiver set that isn't so high end, you know, more basic, and see if I still have these problems with failure to feeds and jamming up and stuff. And then that'll tell me, you know, is it the receiver set or not, or what have you. And the second lesson to be learned is if you want to do a build and learn about building ARs and stuff like that, one of my favorite ways to learn, especially when you're new, is to buy a kit. Usually if you get all the parts from the same company, this isn't always the case, but I'd say 98% of the time this works. If you buy like a kit, for example, the receivers come from the same company, the barrels, all that stuff. Typically once you're done building them, they work flawlessly out of the box. Not always, but you're more likely to get a flawless build when you keep everything the same. Whereas with this one, it's kind of a hodgepodge, you know, Ascend Armory, Strike Industries, you know, then we got Geisley, and then we got, you know, Ballistic Advantage. We got a bunch of different parts. And combined with 300 Blackout, which can be a finicky round if not tuned correctly, I kind of expected this, but I didn't expect it because the first two mags ran flawlessly through the gun. Now, if you were gonna build this in 5.56 or 223, I don't think you would have any of these issues. In fact, you might have an overgas problem, and then you could use the adjustable gas block to back it down. But I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are about this. Do you think I made mistakes on this build on choosing parts, or what parts would you have chosen differently? But if you liked today's video, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, that's totally okay. Just hit the dislike button twice. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already. But until next time, guys, I love you. You guys stay sexy.